What's going on, everybody? Welcome to another episode of the Betting Booth. It's our second to last. Well, I guess maybe we'll have a bonus episode. We'll see. We don't have many episodes left during this football season. We'll do some stuff throughout the offseason, maybe look at some futures markets and stuff like that. But we've got championship weekend coming up on Sunday, and it's time to help people make some money with our picks. A better week last weekend than the weekend before, thank gosh. Although, again, I need to tip my hat to you, Mr. Trendy McTrenderson. I went with the over in the Rams-Bears game, and that one did not come close to hitting. You had the under in that one. You also had the first half under, and those were both very profitable. So well done. I should never go toe-to-toe with you. What am I doing?
The best bets we actually held in our best bets in the Rams money line was one of the big plays we gave out, and the under in the Indiana-Miami first half. So it wasn't. It could have been a cleaner weekend if Caleb didn't have the play of his life in the Bears game to get that little backdoor cover. But was happy to have a profitable week coming off the week we had before. So I'm excited to get into these games today because I've got maybe the biggest play I'm going to make the entire playoffs in this little slate we got. So not a lot of games left, but still some money to be made.
And I don't think we're going to draft picks necessarily. I mean, there are only two games, and we can talk about the sides and the totals and maybe some props. But, I mean, we didn't talk about this beforehand, but I don't know that there's any reason to draft picks. I mean, there's so few on the board here. So I think we just go game by game. And, well, let's start with the AFC game because that one's going to be the first game on Sunday. CBS, 2 o'clock Central kick, 3 o'clock Eastern, the Patriots and the Broncos. And this is an interesting one because the road team's a 4.5-point favorite since Bo Nix mysteriously got hurt, broke his ankle. He's out for the rest of the season. Jarrett Stidham is going to start, and that's why the home team, the number one seed in the AFC, is a dog in this matchup. It opened, I think, at 5.5, right?
Opened at 5.5, yeah.
Yeah, and it's now down to 4.5. If I know you, I think we probably did the same thing. And maybe we texted about it. Maybe it's very possible we did, but I jumped on Denver at 5.5. I really like that. I think you got a little bit of an overcorrection here with Jarrett Stidham. Now you are taking a risk because you're betting on a guy who hasn't started a game in forever, and he's only won one start in his career. But I do love this Denver defense going up against Drake May in Denver. And I think you kind of have to give Sean Payton a little bit of equity here to maybe make something of Jarrett Stidham. But I don't know. What are your thoughts on this? And what are your thoughts on this now that the numbers dropped from 5.5 to 4.5?
Yeah, this is the ultimate sharp versus square spot, public versus the sharps. When this line came out, I couldn't believe they made it this big. But I would go as far as to say, if you're a professional bettor and you tell me you're taking the Patriots, if you took them at 5.5, even at 4.5, I'm going to tell you you're losing all credibility in this spot. This is an egregious number they've put out on this game because they just know that the public is going to bet the Patriots side because nobody's going to want to back what we've seen out of Jarrett Stidham as a professional. When you look more at Jarrett Stidham's stats as a professional, it tells a different tale. He's thrown for over 200 yards in every game he's played. He's thrown a touchdown in every game. Average stats, okay, maybe he's not Bo Nix, and he's never played in a playoff game, but this look-ahead line was probably going to be Broncos by 2.5, between 1.5 and 2.5, Broncos as a favorite. And now you flip the line almost 8 points, 7 to 8 points flip off losing Bo Nix. And Bo Nix is not, he's been playing better. Sean Payton's been putting the ball in his hands a little bit more late in the season, but he is not the strength of this team. He was not the reason this team had one loss at home. He's not the reason they were the number one seed. He had a good year. He brought them back in some games, but the strength of this team is up front on the offensive line. They're a top 3 offensive line, and it's on defense where they're a top 3 defense in the league. We've seen how Drake May has played against these good defenses the last 2 weeks. He's been sacked 10 times, and he has 6 fumbles in 2 games. If it wasn't for a CJ Stroud meltdown in that game, I think we see a different result in that game. So I can get behind that the Patriots may be the representative of the AFC in the Super Bowl, but to give the Broncos this many points, a number one seed, is disrespectful, and I almost like it so much that it scares me. I have already put an obscene amount of money on the Broncos at 5.5. I'm gonna probably keep pounding it. It's one of my biggest plays I've made the entire year, and again, every professional I've talked to is coming in on this Broncos team, which that scares me a little bit, but you're still getting 80% of the bets on the Patriots. The books are going to be begging for Broncos money. Everyone's going to be betting this Patriots team. I'm going to throw out some stats for you, Jared.
Okay.
You call me trendy. I think Ricky Trenderson, maybe better than
probably need to come up. I think I said Trendy McTrender. I don't know what I said, but you are the king of the trend. So we got.
Yeah, it's a unique. Okay, this is a unique spot. Unique spot. This is the first time ever a number one seed has closed. If they close as a 4-point dog or worse, it'll be the biggest underdog ever for a 1 seed in a conference championship game. So that's pretty crazy. There has been 9 games where the home team in the playoffs has closed as a dog of 4 or more. One of those games was this playoffs where we did the Rams. I'm not sure if it was one of my 3 plays that week, but I did lose money. I did take the Rams that week, and I said, trends say, take the Panthers, but I just couldn't get behind it. The Panthers did cover. If a dog has closed of a 4-point dog or more in the last 50 years, so basically in the history of the NFL, 9-0 against the spread, if you close as a home dog more than 4 or more in the playoffs. So this falls into that trend. 1 seed, most egregious dog we've ever seen in this spot. So again, Jared Stidham, he's not some quarterback who hasn't been in the NFL. He has been with Sean Payton for 2 years. They're still going to run the Sean Payton offense. And this offensive line is a better offensive line than they saw in Houston. It's a better offensive line, of course, than we saw probably the worst offensive line in the league in the Chargers. So I think Stidham, he can be more than a game manager in this game. And I love the spot. I like it almost so much that it scares me a little bit.
Yeah, and I just think that, again, the Sean Payton factor. I like having a guy who, he seems to be able to solve all these offensive riddles. I don't know that I like Sean Payton. He's done some things that I'm like, gosh, that's kind of a D move. But at the end of the day, there's no doubt that he can figure some things out offensively. You're right. Yeah. I love what you said about there is probably a big difference between a guy in his rookie year getting thrust into action versus a guy who has seen some things. He's been a backup now for a few years. He's, I don't know how much better he is, but he's definitely more prepared, right? To whatever degree you can be prepared to make your first start in however many years and do it in a conference championship game, he is better prepared for that. And, I think this Broncos defense, I think this is the key. I'll say this, and maybe Mike Vrabel coaches to counter this. You can never if any coach could guarantee no turnovers, they would. It's not like you press a button, but I think a part of the bet here is, I think that the Broncos are gonna, because of their defense, have good field position at times to put up points, right? Like if you're telling me the Broncos every drive are going to have to drive, 70 to 80 yards to score, however many yards to get a field goal range. All right, well, that could be a little dicey, but I don't think they're going to have to do that. And whether they're turning Drake May over or they're just winning the field position battle, I think that's something that is going to help them. And I'm curious what the weather's going to be because, we got like Snowmageddon. You and I are here in Texas, and it's anything below 40 degrees, people freak the F out. But I guess it's supposed to be kind of wacky all over the country. Is this going to be just a really cold day in Denver? Is there going to be a lot of snow, wind? Either way, I don't think that one necessarily could be detrimental to Denver. I think it just is a question of, is this a higher scoring game, or are we talking about a 20-17 type game or a 17-14 type game? I'm curious to see how the weather dictates the tempo of the game.
Yeah, I mean, I'm hearing it's going to be cold, but I think Colorado, Denver specifically, might miss the big part of this snowstorm that makes it, a really tough game in the elements. So I think the sun might be out, but it's going to be, in the low, in the 20s. And like you said, Drake May's been clutch in these games. He's made some big plays, but he has had a propensity to turn the ball over. And Will Campbell, since he's come back, has not looked right. He hasn't been handling the bull rushes, and it's not going to get any easier this week with this defensive front for Denver who can get after the quarterback. So, like you said, if they can sit him some short fields and not make him have to do too much. But this isn't a guy, again, this was a guy who was mad when they drafted Bo Nix. He was, outspoken that, he thought he could be a starter in the Knicks. This isn't a guy who's looking out to come out here and just dink and dunk down the field and not try to make plays. They're getting guys back, as they lost their leader in Bo Nix, but they're getting Franklin back this week. They're getting the receiver core back. Sounds like some of the guys they lost during the game against Buffalo are coming back. J.K. Dobbins has the potential to play in this game, which I think could be a huge game changer. He didn't play basically half the year, and he was their leading rusher for the year for Denver. So they still have that offensive line that can pound the rock. They have a stable of backs with or without Dobbins. You mentioned Peyton, as an underdog, has been amazing in his career. As a home underdog, it's happened 22 times. He's 12-10 straight up as an underdog, not against the spread. 12-10 winning those games as an underdog in his career at home. There's only, I think, 4 coaches since 2003 with a winning record straight up as a dog, and Sean Payton's one of those 4. The other, Mike Tomlin and Bruce Arians. So in great company there. I think Vrabel's actually the other one, which is funny. The argument for the Pats is the Broncos are coming off an overtime game. Are they, health-wise? I said they're getting guys back, but, late in the fourth quarter in a close game, coming off an overtime, there's a ton of splits that show, the body wear and tear that you take. But the Denver did get that extra day of rest as well. They played on Saturday. The Patriots played on Sunday. So that extra day of rest, a ton of statistics show that extra day of rest in the playoffs actually makes a huge difference against the spread. So I like it. Number 1 seed, getting this many points. Number 1 seed in conference championship games since 2006, 21-5 straight up, the number 1 seed since 2006. So again, we can look at these games and say, is it the spot or is it the matchup? The Rams game, there's so many trends that favor the Seahawks. I'm biased because I have said the Rams are the team of destiny all year, and so I have some bias in that game. But I'm following the trends in this one. The public money being that strong on this Patriots team, and immediately the book saying, "Wow, we're getting a lot of sharp dollars coming in at that 5.5. We got to make it 4.5." I wouldn't be surprised if it gets lower by game time. I wouldn't be surprised if we got it down to 4, 3.5. So I would take it now at the 4.5. I would not wait. I don't think we're going to see it get back to that 5.5 number. I could see it getting lower.
Yeah, no, that makes sense, especially with, what you're saying about the betting distribution. Do you have any thoughts on the total? We talked about weather. Cold weather just on its own does not typically, at least historically, impact totals. Mm-hmm. So is this a wait and see what the weather's like just because of, potential fluctuation there? Or would you want to jump on, I'm seeing 42.5. I'm also seeing 43s out there. Would you want to jump on this now and take your chance? Or
I will
is
say
this a wait and see?
Yeah, I will say it's telling that the professional dollars definitely came in on the over to begin the game. It opened at 40.5, and we've seen it climb almost 2 points, 2.5 points on some books. And I think it's because of what they think is an overreaction on Jared Stidham, where they still think this guy can move the ball and make some plays downfield. And you have the turnover factor with a new quarterback and with Drake May. So maybe you're getting some short fields. So I don't really have I like the Broncos side a lot more than any play on the over under. I will say if Bo Nix was starting, I would probably have been more inclined to take the under because we'd probably get a better number. And now with this quarterback that the public is going to think maybe this guy can't move the ball, maybe they're, the Broncos are going to play conservative and just run the football the whole game. I don't think that's what we're going to see. I think the over under for Stidham passing attempts is like 31, something like that. So, they set that line. He's going to be dropping back to pass. They're going to, Sean Payton, they may run a lot more, short passes and stuff to get him a little more comfortable in the offense, but I don't think they're just going to be, playing conservative. They're going to be aggressive in this game. So I would lean actually over, which is surprising when I would, look at these two teams. Both teams are coming off an over performance. So usually I think there'd be a public overreaction on seeing both teams go over and then betting the over. But now that you have Stidham, they're not following that trend of just following what just happened the last game. So maybe some value on the over. I'm going to wait and see on the weather. And like I said, I like the side so much in this game that I almost don't want to be cheering for anything else. I'm just going to be riding, taking out the mortgage on the Broncos and emptying out the bank account. So yeah, that's my read on the over under. Not super strong until I see, like you said, what plays out with the weather.
From a prop standpoint, I think the J.K. Dobbins thing is an interesting thing to follow. If you feel like he's going to play, you might want to jump on an RJ Harvey under. I know a lot of people really like Ramondre Stevenson with the way he's been used here recently, whether it's a combo yard number. I think that's at 70.5 rushing and receiving. A lot of people like that over, or just the rushing yard number, which I know at one point was 47.5. I think I've seen it up to 48.5. But I think if you're looking for an under, the one that's interesting from a running back standpoint is maybe RJ Harvey under 42.5 rushing yards. I'll tell you, Zach, the over that I like from a prop standpoint is something that involves Stephon Diggs. So first of all, from a passing point of view, you think about game script. Neither of us think that the Patriots are going to just run away with this. And so, they're going to be motivated to throw the football. And with the Broncos pass rush, you might see it as much as the Patriots like to let the ball rip downfield, and they'll certainly take their shots. I don't see them totally changing their personality, but sometimes you have to get the ball out quicker. And Stephon Diggs plays in the slot a lot. We saw what Khalil Shakir did against the Broncos last week. I think he had 7 catches, 75 yards, high volume there. I like the Stephon Diggs. I played it earlier in the week at 3.5 on the reception number. I think it might be tough to find a 3.5, but even at 4.5, I think I kind of like that. I don't know how much I want to play the yardage number for Stephon Diggs or the longest reception number, but I do like Stephon Diggs' volume this Sunday because one area in which the Broncos have, I don't want to say struggled, but they've been a little bit more vulnerable throughout the year, especially recently, has been against slot receivers, and that's where the Patriots oftentimes will line up Stephon Diggs. So from a prop standpoint, those are a few things that stand out to me for this matchup.
Yeah, I think that's fun. I think that's a fun one on Diggs, and that makes sense. I think, like you said, May is going to have to make plays with his arm in this game. And, if we're expecting a close game and taking the Broncos and we don't think it's going to be a blowout, which I think we both believe that, then that makes sense. And that would be his security blanket in the slot. I think the one I really like is betting on overs for the Denver receivers that other than Cortland Sutton.
Yeah.
I think with Christian Gonzalez, he's going to be matched up with Sutton most likely. And, he may be able to shut him down, but that just opens the avenue for all these other receivers, whether it's Marvin Mims or Pat Bryant, or we said Franklin's coming back in this game. I like Franklin a lot. And we saw what Pat Bryant, the first 3 plays of the game against the Bills, he had 3 catches and then he got hurt and went out of the game. So he's been a reliable target. You have a new quarterback, so that may scare you. But again, with the pass attempt number that they're putting out there on the prop for Stidham, I actually like the over on pass attempts for Stidham in the game. And with Christian Gonzalez being matched up with Sutton, I think you're going to get some value on those other receivers. You've seen it with Christian Gonzalez the whole playoffs. The guy he guards is just getting wiped out of the game. So I like that. Looking at those other receivers and looking at the number you can get on those other Denver receivers.
All right, well, that's going to be a fun one. I think some people are sleeping on it because they see backup quarterback and they're out. They think that New England's going to run away. I heard one sports podcast before they had even seen the line. The line had come out, but before they had seen it, they played Guess the Line, and they were like 10 and a half, 11. I think a lot of people probably would be surprised to see the line, as what it is, which is, like we said, currently at 4.5. But the other game, this is going to be a fun one. It's a third time matchup, the Seahawks and the Rams. The Seahawks, the home team, favored by 2.5. I think this one opened at 3, and it is now dropped to under a field goal for Seattle. My early thought, Zach, was taking the Rams. I got the Rams at +3, but curious where you are with this one, because I know a lot of people feel really, really strongly about the Seahawks.
Yeah, so I still believe, I'm biased. I almost have a reason to take the Seahawks as a hedge because I have so much invested in this Rams Super Bowl run, and they've been my Super Bowl pick the whole year. I've bet them multiple times. Public and Sharp's pretty split on this game, which I'm not surprised. There's not really a strong read. The game opened at Seahawks by 1.5. The Sharps bet it up to 3, and then at 3 there was some pushback from professional bettors at 3 and moved it back to 2.5. So, there's back and forth on this game. Again, do you trust the matchup or do you trust the spot? When you look at the matchup, to me, you look at the 2 meetings this year. The Rams won the first one. They really dominated that game. The score, I don't think, is indicative of how much they dominated that game. Darnold threw 4 picks in that game. The defense really dominated for the Rams. And then you look at the second game, and the Rams were up 30-14 late in that game. Shaheed had a punt return touchdown, and then it took a fluky 2-point conversion at the end for the Seahawks to win that game at home. And, they didn't cover. We actually won. I remember we had the Rams, I think, +1.5 in that game and got the cover. So if you look at the matchup, you would say, hey, these teams have played twice. The Rams have looked like the better team in both of those games. So we should take the Rams. But if you look at the spot, the Rams have had a brutal run. This is their 4th straight road game. And they're the first team ever to not cover in the first 2 rounds. They're coming off an overtime game against the Bears. I'll give that stat out. Team coming off an overtime win in the next round in the playoffs, 0-5 straight up, 1-4 against the spread. So they're coming off an overtime win. That's not great. The Broncos also fall into that category. So, you could use that if you want to take the Patriots. Rest advantage. Again, their 4th straight road game, and they played on Sunday night on a overtime game. The Seahawks played on Saturday and basically wiped the Niners out. So they, didn't have to really break their backs in the game. Rest advantage. Teams in conference championship game. The team that has a day extra of rest, 27-17 straight up. And if the team is at home with the rest advantage, 21-7 straight up. So rest is a real thing. We talk about all the time. These guys are human beings. It's the 22nd game, 21st game for them of the season. This is, late in the 4th quarter, your left guard is feeling that, that rest advantage, or not the other way around, late in these games. So it's a 3rd straight road game. Gave that out. If you're the underdog in that game and it's your 3rd straight road game, 9-28 straight up historically. So there's just so many trends that put the Rams in a bad spot here. They're down 2 cornerbacks. So, what are we going to see from defensively? They've had trouble stopping the pass all year, late in the year, and now they're down starting cornerbacks. But again, this is the Darnold spot. We've said as a big favorite, Darnold has been fantastic. He did it again last week. We were kind of mixed on that game. Big favorite. He's been amazing against the spread and winning straight up. He did it again, blowout last week as a big favorite. But as a short favorite in these closer games, who do you want late in the game? Do you want Stafford or do you want Darnold? And I still believe in this Rams team. I still believe we haven't seen the best of them in this playoffs. I don't think we saw the best of them in a game against Carolina where they played with their food against inferior opponent, and maybe they weren't taking that game serious enough in the second half. And I think the Bears game, McVay made some mistakes in that game. Coaching wise, I think they should have just kept pounding the rock late in that game. It was working for them. They went away from the jumbo boxes. So I think if I get the best of both these teams, I still believe in the Rams. And I believe it should probably be a pick 'em. You're going to give me points, I'll take the Rams. But the scary thing is all those trends I gave you about how tired is this team coming off 4 straight road games with the injuries, with an overtime game. It's like the NFL has really stacked the box against this team. Can they overcome all of these things against a rested, healthy, they lost Charbonnet, but in general, healthy team? Can the Rams offensive line hold up against these dogs up front? So can't wait to see it, but I'm biased. Like I said, I loved it at the 3, betted at the 3 with the Rams. At the 2.5, I have not played the Rams, and I would understand why someone would like the Seahawks. I get it. It makes sense from a trend perspective, but my heart is with this team, and so is all my future. So maybe a small hedge at some point for me with the Seahawks based on how the game's going, maybe live if I see early in this game that the Rams just look beat up. But I think if we get the best of both teams and you're giving me points, I'll take McVay and Stafford.
Yeah, we've talked about it before. I mean, they're always different paths how you get from point A to B, but sometimes it is, and I know this isn't a pick 'em, but I mean, you mentioned how it maybe some people would have their their computers kind of generate more of a pick 'em type line, but with their models, but it's a field goal at most, right? So this is a line that suggests a close game, and a lot of people like going with the better quarterback, especially if the better quarterback's getting money. And or getting points. And I want to ask you about that better quarterback in a second, but yeah, I like this as well. I do. You said something earlier on, the loss, that Rams Seahawks epic game, the Rams lost. It did seem though, like if you look at some of the numbers, the Rams are going to win that game way more often than they're going to lose it. They were the better team there. It's not always going to show with the result. A lot of times it does, but not always, right? So I just think. At worst, like you said, I agree. I think pick 'em. I think I take the Rams. I guess the only question, or not the only question, because you brought up some points as far as rest and things of that nature. But are the Seahawks just this well-oiled machine right now that they're rolling at the right time, and the Rams, who have not dominated, they didn't dominate the Panthers. They certainly didn't run away from the Bears, even if it took a miraculous play to send that game to overtime. Are they just positioned really well to win this game at home? But I'd have a tough time playing the Seahawks here. A lot of it goes back to Stafford versus Darnold for me, and I don't want to oversimplify it, but that's a big part of kind of what's swimming in my mind here. Would I rather go down getting Stafford and points, or would I rather go down giving points with Darnold? And I feel like, I just feel like the smarter play here is going with Stafford and the Rams. And I want to ask you about Stafford here. I was thinking about this, and a lot of times we assign value to a player's career based on Super Bowls. So, maybe someone would say, well, right now, my answer would be very different than if, he wins the Super Bowl here in a few weeks. But I'm going to give you quarterbacks, and I want you to tell me whether Matthew Stafford has had a better career. Like if you were to rank quarterbacks all time, are you taking this guy or Matthew Stafford? Okay. And I'm not including like the YA Tittles of the world. The game was so different then you just can't compare. Right. So,
Lamar Jackson.
Okay. We'll get to him. We'll get to him. So some obvious ones where I think you're taking that person, not Stafford. Tell me if you disagree on any of them. Tom Brady, Patrick Mahomes, Peyton Manning, Dan Marino, John Elway, Aaron Rodgers, Brett Favre, Drew Brees, Steve Young, Joe Montana. Any disagreements there? You take all of those guys over Stafford.
Agreed.
Okay. Troy Aikman. I take Aikman over Stafford. I'm not going to act like I was breaking down football when I was 5 and 6 when Aikman was in his heyday, but it's just so tough to deny a guy who won 3 Super Bowls. It's not his fault the game was played differently back then. I think I'd take Aikman over Stafford.
I would take Aikman as well. Yeah.
Okay. Wasn't watching Roger Staubach, but I think I based on what I have heard from people with how he played the game and the way he dominated that position in that era, at minimum, I think you got to consider Staubach, but I would take Staubach. I would give, if people tell me, hey, you're crazy for taking Stafford, fine. I'll add Staubach to that list. But what about you?
Again, tough because we weren't watching. I would say Staubach most likely, yeah.
Okay. Kurt Warner.
I would say Matt Stafford maybe still has some meat on the bone, though. Like, they win this year. They win this year. Maybe I say something different. Okay, keep going.
Kurt Warner. I'd take Kurt Warner.
I'd probably take Kurt Warner. I would say the longevity of Stafford's career, is probably an argument. I'd have to go back and look at the stats for how long Kurt Warner did it for. Again, some of these arguments, it's tough because, he plays on, in football, you play on one side of the ball and, Josh Allen, for example, it's like, he's obviously not on my Mount Rushmore of quarterbacks or not even close to it yet. But if you're asking me just talented, most talented quarterbacks of all time, skill wise, who would I want to have if I started a team? Josh Allen's probably in that conversation. Right. But he can't be considered the best quarterback ever, even close or even, in the top 20 because he's never won it. But Stafford had all those years in Detroit where he was balling, but
and he had bad coaching too, right? Like
bad coaching, bad defense.
Yeah. And Jim Schwartz wasn't a horrible coach when he was there, but he wasn't an offensive coach and they didn't have. So we're at, that's 13. Mm-hmm. All right. Now I want to go to a list. These are all people that I would take Stafford over. Now, This one might be controversial. And again, I did not see this guy play, but Terry Bradshaw. And I don't know that either of us with Bradshaw or Staubach are really equipped, but all right. Ben Roethlisberger. Now I know Ben Roethlisberger maybe had, more team success, but it's again, not Matthew Stafford's fault that he started his career in Detroit just because he was such a coveted prospect out of college. He was more coveted than Roethlisberger. So he had a worse situation with the way the draft works. I think I take Stafford over Roethlisberger.
I think I would too. I mean, I think a win this year would really push him over the edge there. If there's any argument on the other side, if Stafford got a second one with the same coach, I would put him there. So yeah, okay. I would agree. I would probably lean Stafford slightly over Roethlisberger.
Okay. Eli Manning. I take Matthew Stafford.
It's close. Yeah, I would probably take Stafford too. Okay. Again, you look at Super Bowls and, that's why Eli is a Hall of Famer. Not only the reason he's a Hall of Famer, but, that defense won them, was a big part of those Super Bowls. And, statistically, if you look at Stafford, I haven't looked at stats next to each other, but I'm sure Stafford will, as far as yardage and touchdowns when his career ends, I would imagine that he's gonna have a little bit better splits than Eli Manning. So I would lead Stafford.
Okay, and then two guys playing now who, they've got years left to change the narrative, but as of right now, I don't think I could take Lamar Jackson or Josh Allen over Matthew Stafford. Now I feel like I might end up taking Josh Allen, but he's got to do it in the playoffs. And as unbelievably unique and gifted as Lamar is, I don't know that I can take Lamar over Matthew Stafford.
I completely agree. Cannot put Lamar anywhere close yet until he makes, until he gets to a Super Bowl.
So I go through that exercise, and some people might have others who I didn't name who they think deserve, like Phillip Rivers or whatever. I don't know that I would do that, but Matthew Stafford might be a top 15 quarterback of all time. And long way to get to this point. That means he's one of the all-time greats. And the all-time greats in this setting, in this situation, it's tough to bet against them, especially against a guy like Sam Darnold, who's never done it on this stage in this moment. So that's a big reason why I do like the Rams. And again, they're getting points here. They're not giving points. They're getting points.
It's pretty insane to think you have a top 15 quarterback ever in these 4 teams. And then the other 3 are Sam Darnold, Drake May, who, maybe 10 years from now we're talking about, but his first playoffs, and then Jared Stidham is the 4th one. So, it is interesting that this is his first year, and I think people keep giving out the stat. This is his first year being in the top 5 of MVP. He hasn't been there. So it's funny to have a top 15 guy ever, when we're thinking of him against these other guys, but just season by season, he's not considered amongst and usually it's a quarterback award, the MVP award, right? So, Lamar's gotten a couple, Josh Allen, Mahomes, so all these guys, and Stafford but he's just been consistent, and he is a guy that you want the ball in his hands, and as a pocket quarterback, still doing it just from the pocket, making plays with his arm. So I like it. Darnold, it's, with this game, it's whether the Seahawks can do it despite Darnold, most likely. They got a San Francisco team who was really flawed, like we talked about. I gave out 3 teams last week who were, how long can they make it work? It was the Niners, the Bears, and the Bills. How are these teams making work? They're all bounced now. All 3 of those teams are gone. And the Seahawks, my point is that the Seahawks got one of those flawed teams who was completely decimated. They have not been tested in this spot. And, if you're going to have to rely late in the game on Darnold winning you the game, that's when I really like the Rams. In a close game late, if you have to rely on Darnold. And there are some reports that, he has been practicing. They've been shooting him up before the game. This oblique thing, they kind of hit him in that game. They didn't have to use him at all in the Niners game. So we can't really look at that playoff game and be like, Darnold's fine. He hasn't really had to be tested at all. And now without Charbonnet, you can say Charbonnet, you look at the stats, it's like, Charbonnet, not that big of a loss. That guy found a lot of touchdowns for this team the whole year. He found the end zone a ton, made key first, third down conversions. And now they're just, Kenneth Walker had a big day without him, but you don't have that other back, coming in fresh off the bench. So again, do we trust Darnold if we have a close game late? I'd rather have Stafford. That game that they won by 1, that we thought the Rams looked like the better team. No Devontae Adams in that game either. So now you add Devontae to the mix. So I am worrisome about the wear and tear on these bodies on the Rams. I am nervous about the cornerbacks, and is Jackson Smith-Njigba just gonna have a field day on them? But I got to see it from Darnold in the playoffs before I back him. So we'll take the better quarterback. We think the better coach. I think he had a rough day at the office last week and he got away with it, but I think we'll see a good game plan from McVay this week, and keep riding the Rams.
Yep, I think we got to. I agree. So we're aligned here. We're both on Denver. We're both on the Rams, and hopefully we get some positive results in that regard. So on the 2 dogs, it doesn't mean we think the Rams and the Broncos are going to win. The Seahawks and Patriots can win the game, and we can still win the bets with the sides we're on. Zach, I don't know if you heard, but the Rangers made a really big trade, and they got a press conference starting in 2 minutes. Any final thoughts on this weekend and plays that people should be aware of?
Not really. I mean, one quick one is I like whoever wins the NFC to win the Super Bowl. And there is ways to bet the winner of the NFC winning the Super Bowl at a good number right now. If you do happen to get the Denver Broncos with Stidham, you're going to get a steal now. Even if it's the Patriots, I think we're going to see, a future line of, if it's the Seahawks or the Rams, I think there'll be more than a 4.5 point favorite against the Patriots team. So I think it's minus 220 right now to bet the NFC champion to win the Super Bowl. I think there's some value there on that. I had some Indiana stuff, but Jared's got his real job. I just want to say, I think that on Indiana, because I know I got a couple Indiana listeners, loyal listeners, I think we have to be talking about it as possibly the best college football team in history. I think it's in that conversation. First 16-0 team ever. Second best point differential ever. Heisman Trophy winner. And he took the losingest team in college football to the national championship and won it.
Yeah, it's incredible.
It is. We didn't really get into that game at all or any feedback, but for the Indiana listeners, to be a sports fan and be an Indiana fan at this time, it's got to be feeling good. It's everything good about sports. So I love it and happy for my Indiana people in my life. So hopefully the Longhorns can do something similar in the years to come.
Well, they've had a great offseason. They've made some big additions, which didn't used to be something you would say about a college sports program, but that's just the way of the world these days. All right, so championship weekend Sunday, the doubleheader. Super Bowl is not next week, but we'll still do a show next week. Begin the conversation with the Super Bowl. There's so much that comes up with the Super Bowl and different bets, and you get so many people that bet they never bet outside of just that one game. So we'll do something next week, and then we'll obviously be back Super Bowl week as well to really break things down. All right, so we're both on the Broncos plus 4.5. We're both on the Rams plus 2.5. And hopefully you enjoy Championship Sunday. We'll talk to you next week. This has been the Betting Booth. He's Zach. I'm Jared. Thanks so much for hanging with us.